So if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees. I promise. I promise.
Now, that was a Trump rally last year showing how charged the atmosphere was. Now President Trump is being blamed for inspiring violence, and he faces a lawsuit. It stems from this rally in Louisville, Kentucky from March of last year. You can see that an anti-Trump protester being pushed through the crowd. Here are the people involved. The man in the red hat, white nationalist Matthew Heimbach, and the man in the black hat, Alvin Bamberger. The woman alleges they both assaulted her, according to court documents just filed. Heimbach says he was relying on Trump's authority to remove people, and Bamberger says he acted with Trump's, quote, specific urging and inspiration.
All right, get him out, get him out, get him out. Get him out. Oh, look who we have here, some wonderful people. Oh. Get out of here, get out, get out. Get out of here. Oh, we have another wise guy. Go ahead. Get him the hell out. Get him out. Oh, get out of here. Get out of here. Look at these people. Get out of here. Get out. 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 Get out.
The president's lawyers say he is immune to this lawsuit as president. Alan Dershowitz is a constitutional law scholar and professor emeritus at Harvard Law School. Nice to see you, Alan. And now we have this federal claim against the president and others. Take me through this.
Well, first of all, Donald Trump will lose on the issue of his immunity because he's a sitting president. Theoretically, he ought to win. I think the case was wrongly decided by the Supreme Court, but it was 9-0 against Clinton in the Paula Jones case, saying that he had to be sued while he sat as president. I think the proper rule would be that you don't have immunity, but you can be sued only after you leave the presidency. But that issue has been resolved 9-0. He will lose. The judge also ruled against him on a motion to dismiss, which means he may have to sit down for discovery. But ultimately, I predict he will win the case because I think the First Amendment protects the speech that he delivered, even though I thoroughly disapprove of what he said. The speech he actually made on the day the violence occurred was not a direct incitement to violence. In order to be able to be prosecuted or even sued under the First Amendment, there has to be very specific incitement, and the violence has to follow pretty much immediately. And
all right, let me ask you about this. In District of Columbia assault, you don't have to touch the person. You just have to have the apparent ability to do so. Like, I can't assault you because you're far away from me. I can't reach and touch you. But if someone were sitting right here, if I threaten to assault the person, even don't do it, I could be guilty of assault. In this instance, people touched people and moved them out of there. So that is that's an unwanted touching. Right. So that would be an assault. If you are encouraging someone, get him out. Are you not? Don't you run the risk, I should say, of someone thinking you're an aider and abetter?
Well, you do run the risk, and if it went to a jury, he might very well lose. But I think the court will keep it away from the jury. You know, it's interesting. Some years ago, I wrote a book about Thomas Jefferson. I had found a letter of Thomas Jefferson that was written literally on the 25th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, in which this precise issue was raised. A minister made a speech in which he said, if anybody makes a speech urging people to do violence, and then they do violence, they should be prosecuted. Jefferson wrote a very strong letter saying, no, in America we prosecute the people who do the violence, but not the people who make the speeches. We draw the line between the advocacy on the one hand and the violence on the other hand. Now, imagine if the situation were reversed. Imagine if this was an Occupy Wall Street event and some extreme leftist saw somebody come with, say, a Nazi flag or something and said, get the fascists out of here, and they pushed him out. In that case, the ACLU would be all over this case. They would say, First Amendment, right of free speech, because it's a leftist who was making the speech, but because it's Donald Trump. We haven't heard anything from the ACLU on this. We haven't heard anything from the civil liberties community. You know, that puts me in a tough position. I was a Hillary supporter, not a Trump supporter. I'm a liberal Democrat, but I believe strongly in a broad interpretation of the First Amendment. So I have to be on Trump's side on this issue. I wish more civil libertarians would understand the broad implications of this. You know, you hear about shouting fire in the theater. That's the dumbest thing Justice Holmes ever wrote in his long career. Shouting fire in a crowded theater is the equivalent of pulling a fire alarm. It's not speech. Here you had speech, literally speech. So I think it is protected by the First Amendment.
Let me back up one other step. Is there any, like, I mean, you have these protests, or you have these rallies, or even these town halls. Someone stands up and screams and yells at a political opponent. Let me just change the discussion a little bit. Can that be considered trespass because you're invited there to listen, not to obstruct and to yell horrible things?
Well, it depends on whether it's a public event. There was a case just like that in the University of California, which is a public university. Michael Oren, the former ambassador from Israel, came to make a speech, and Students for Justice for Palestine decided to shut him down, not allow him to speak. And as soon as he got up, they shouted. They wouldn't let him speak. And they were prosecuted. And the ACLU came into the case, but on the wrong side. They came in on the side of the disruptors, saying they had a free speech right to try to shut down the speaker instead of coming in on the side of the speaker. So this is an issue that has been debated much and is being debated much today. It's a little different because here you have the President of the United States. Look, he shouldn't have made those statements. And if there had been violence following his earlier speech where he said, you know, punch him in the mouth, I'll pay your legal bills, that might have been a closer case. But you really can't look back at a prior speech and say, well, weeks later, somebody engaged in violence because they took the current speech and put it in the context of the previous speech. The First Amendment won't protect that. And so I hope that the First Amendment is interpreted broadly to protect Donald Trump, even though I disagree with the content of Trump's speech and the manner in which he delivered it.
Alan, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.